2. German pregnant shepherds were locked in a cage, submerged in water. What baby did next? Left everyone in tears. The story you're about to listen will leave you breathless. A traumatized child who hadn't spoken in months did something so incredible that it changed everything. What happens when innocence becomes the most powerful force against evil? Stay with us through this heart-wrenching journey. Don't forget to like, share, and let us know where you're listening from. Rain pounded against the windows of the old farmhouse as thunder cracked overhead. Inside, 5-year-old Emma Harper sat motionless by the window, her small fingers tracing patterns in the condensation. Her eyes, once bright with childish wonder, now held a vacant stare that had become all too familiar to her grandfather, Jack. "Emma, honey, time for dinner," Jack called from the kitchen, his voice gentle but tired. No response came. There never was one these days. 6 months had passed since the accident that took Emma's mother away forever. 6 months since Emma had spoken a single word. The doctors called it selective mutism brought on by trauma. Jack called it heartbreak in its purest form. Jack wiped his hands on a dish towel and walked to the window where Emma sat. At 68, his movements had slowed, but determination kept him going. After retiring as a veterinarian, he never expected to be raising his granddaughter alone on this small animal sanctuary in the quiet town of Pinecrest. Life had other plans. "Look at those storm clouds rolling in," Jack said, kneeling beside Emma. "Your mother used to love thunderstorms. Said they cleaned the world and made everything fresh again." Emma's eyes flickered briefly toward her grandfather, the only acknowledgement he would receive. Jack had learned to treasure these small moments of connection. The sanctuary wasn't large, just a barn converted into a shelter for abandoned and injured animals, a few acres of land, and the old farmhouse that had been in the family for generations. But it was home, and it was all Jack could offer Emma now. Jack placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "The rabbits are probably scared of the thunder. Want to help me check on them after dinner?" For a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of interest in Emma's eyes. Animals were the only things that seemed to reach through the walls she had built around herself. While she wouldn't speak to people, Jack often found her whispering to the injured fox they had rescued last month, or sitting silently with the 3-legged cat that had adopted them last winter. Dinner was a quiet affair, as always. Jack tried to fill the silence with stories about the animals, memories of Emma's mother when she was young, anything to create some warmth in the room. Emma ate methodically, her eyes occasionally darting to the windows as lightning illuminated the darkening sky. "That's the 3rd big storm this month," Jack said, clearing their plates. "Ground's already soaked through. Hope the creek doesn't flood again." As if on cue, the rain intensified, drumming against the roof like impatient fingers. Jack glanced at his watch. "Might need to check the back field, make sure the drainage ditches aren't backed up." Emma slid from her chair and went to the mudroom, returning with Jack's rain boots and coat. It was these small, thoughtful actions that gave Jack hope. His granddaughter was still in there, behind the silence and vacant stairs. "Thank you, sweet pea," he said, slipping on the boots. "You stay here where it's dry. I'll just be a few minutes." Emma shook her head firmly, already pulling on her yellow raincoat and matching boots. "You want to come?" Jack asked, surprised. Emma rarely wanted to leave the house, especially not in weather like this, but she nodded, her determination clear. "All right then. Stay close to me." The rain was coming down in sheets as they stepped onto the back porch. Jack grabbed the flashlights and held Emma's hand tightly as they made their way toward the barn. The wind whipped around them, bending the tall grass and sending leaves spiraling through the air. Jack checked on the animals quickly, making sure the leaky spot in the roof hadn't worsened. The rescued fox eyed them warily from its enclosure, while the older animals barely stirred at their presence, accustomed to the routine checks during bad weather. "Everything looks okay in here," Jack said, giving a gentle pat to an elderly sheep. "Let's check those drainage ditches and get back to the house." But as they stepped back into the storm, Emma froze. Her small body went rigid, and her eyes widened. Jack followed her gaze toward the back of the property, where a small creek ran along the boundary line. In the flash of lightning, he saw it too, something moving near the water's edge. "What in the world?" Jack muttered, squinting through the rain. Emma suddenly pulled away, sprinting toward the creek with surprising speed. "Emma, stop!" Jack called, running after her, his heart pounding with fear. The creek would be swollen with rainwater, the current dangerous. Emma didn't slow down. She ran with purpose, her yellow raincoat a beacon in the darkness. When Jack finally caught up to her at the creek's edge, He found her on her knees in the mud, her small hands pulling at something half buried in the embankment. Jack raised the flashlight, and his breath caught in his throat. A metal cage, partially submerged in the rising water, contained 2 German shepherds. Both dogs were soaking wet, pressed against each other in the small space. Their eyes reflected the flashlight beam with a desperate gleam. "Good Lord," Jack whispered, dropping to his knees beside Emma. The water was rising quickly around the cage, already reaching the dogs' bellies. But what shocked Jack even more was their condition. Both animals were clearly pregnant, their swollen abdomens leaving them barely able to move in the cramped cage. They wore no collars, but Jack noticed strange marks on their ears, some kind of identification tags he didn't recognize. One of the dogs whimpered, a sound so pitiful it made Jack's chest ache. Emma reached toward the cage, her fingers slipping through the bars. Jack instinctively moved to pull her back, expecting the frightened animals to snap. But instead, the closer dog stretched forward, gently licking Emma's fingers. "Careful now," Jack warned, examining the cage. A heavy padlock secured the door, the keys long gone. "We need to get them out of here fast. The water's rising." Emma looked at him with such urgency that Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. He'd never seen such intensity in her eyes since the accident. "I need to get tools from the barn," Jack said, already calculating how much time they had before the cage would be completely underwater. "You stay right here. Don't get any closer to the water." Emma shook her head fiercely, pointing at the dogs, then at the rising water. "I know, honey. I know," Jack said, his mind racing. "But I can't break this lock with my bare hands. 2 minutes, that's all I need." As Jack turned to run back to the barn, Emma grabbed his sleeve, her face set in fierce determination. She pointed at herself, then at the dogs. "You want to stay with them?" Jack asked, hesitating. The rational part of his mind screamed that he shouldn't leave his traumatized 5-year-old alone by a flooding creek with 2 strange dogs. But something in Emma's expression stopped him from arguing. 2 minutes, he repeated, squeezing her shoulder. "Don't get in the water." Jack ran as fast as his aging legs would carry him, cursing under his breath as he slipped in the mud. The barn seemed miles away and every second counted. He grabbed bolt cutters and a crowbar, not sure which would work best on the padlock, and sprinted back toward the creek. The sight that greeted him stopped him in his tracks. The water had risen even faster than he'd feared, now completely covering the bottom of the cage. The dogs were standing, trying to keep their bodies above water. But that wasn't what made Jack's heart nearly stop. Emma was in the water. She had waded into the creek, the water reaching her waist, her small hands gripping the padlock. And as Jack watched in disbelief, something impossible happened. The lock sprang open in Emma's hands, as if responding to her touch alone. The cage door swung open. The first dog immediately leaped into the water, swimming strongly despite her pregnant condition. But the second dog struggled, too weak or too frightened to jump. Without hesitation, Emma reached into the cage, her arms wrapping around the dog's neck. The animal was easily twice her size, yet Emma pulled with a strength that seemed impossible for her small frame. "Emma!" Jack shouted, splashing into the creek. "Emma, be careful!" But his warning wasn't needed. The second dog slid from the cage into the water, and together, Emma and the 2 German shepherds made their way to the bank where Jack stood, tools forgotten in his hands. Time seemed to slow as Jack lifted Emma from the water, checking her for injuries. The dogs dragged themselves onto solid ground, their sides heaving with exertion. In the beam of the dropped flashlight, Jack could see they were in worse condition than he'd initially thought. Their ribs showed through their wet fur, and now that they were out of the cage, he could see the raw marks around their necks and legs where they'd been bound. "What in heaven's name happened to you 2?" Jack murmured, his veterinarian instincts kicking in as he quickly assessed their condition. Emma knelt between the 2 dogs, her small hands pressing against the belly of the weaker one. Her face showed a focus and concern that pierced through Jack's heart. For the first time since the accident, his granddaughter was fully present, fully engaged with the world around her. The rain continued to pour, but Jack hardly noticed. He needed to get the dogs and Emma back to the barn immediately. The pregnant animals needed warmth, food, and medical attention. "Come on, honey," Jack said, gently touching Emma's shoulder. "We need to get them to the barn." The healthier of the 2 dogs struggled to her feet, but the second one couldn't seem to stand. Jack handed Emma the flashlight and carefully lifted the weakened animal, staggering slightly under the weight. "Can you lead the other one?" he asked Emma. To his amazement, Emma nodded and took hold of the loose skin at the healthier dog's neck, gently guiding her toward the barn. The dog followed without resistance, as if she understood that these humans meant safety. The walk back seemed to take forever. By the time they reached the barn, Jack's arms were burning from the strain of carrying the weakened dog. He carefully laid her on a bed of clean straw in an empty stall, while Emma led the other dog to the adjoining space. Jack worked quickly, his old veterinary skills returning as if he'd never left the profession. He dried both dogs with towels, checked their vital signs, and examined them for injuries beyond the obvious malnourishment and restraint marks. "These girls have been through hell," he told Emma, who hadn't left the dog's side, "but they're fighters." The healthier dog, Jack mentally named her Stella, for the white star-shaped patch on her chest, accepted water and a small amount of food. But the weaker one, Luna, for her silvery coat, barely lifted her head when Jack offered her water. "Luna's in rough shape," Jack murmured, more to himself than to Emma, "and both of them are due to whelp soon by the look of it. Very soon." As if confirming his assessment, Stella suddenly stood, turning in circles and whining softly. Jack recognized the signs immediately. She was going into labor. "Oh boy," he sighed, glancing at his watch. It was nearly midnight. "Emma, honey, you should go back to the house and get some sleep. This might take a while." Emma's response was to sit more firmly beside Luna, her small hand resting protectively on the dog's head. The message was clear. She wasn't going anywhere. "All right then," Jack nodded, too tired to argue. "Let me get you some dry clothes at least." Jack made a quick trip to the house, returning with dry clothes for Emma, his old veterinary kit, and extra blankets. He found Emma exactly where he had left her, whispering something to Luna. The sound made Jack's heart skip, his granddaughter, whispering. It wasn't speech directed at humans, but it was something. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Stella's labor progressed quickly, her body remembering what to do despite her weakened state. Jack helped when needed, but the dog was managing well on her own. By 3 in the morning, she had delivered 5 healthy puppies, each one a tiny miracle considering the condition of their mother. Luna, however, hadn't moved. Her breathing was shallow, and Jack feared she might not survive the night, let alone deliver her puppies safely. "She's too weak," he told Emma gently, trying to prepare her. "Sometimes, no matter how hard we try." Emma shook her head fiercely, cutting him off before he could finish. Her eyes, usually vacant, now blazed with determination. She placed both hands on Luna's swollen belly and leaned close, her lips moving in what Jack thought must be another whisper. What happened next would stay with Jack for the rest of his life. Luna's eyes opened. She lifted her head and looked directly at Emma. A connection passed between them, something Jack couldn't explain but could clearly see. The dog's tail thumped once, twice against the straw. "Well, I'll be," Jack breathed, as Luna struggled to her feet, turning in the same pattern Stella had before delivering her puppies. "She's going to try." The labor was difficult. Luna was exhausted before she began. Her body pushed beyond normal limits. Jack did everything he could to help, drawing on years of experience and every trick he knew. Emma never left Luna's side, her small hands sometimes stroking the dog's head, sometimes pressed against her heaving sides. The first puppy arrived just before dawn, tiny and still. Jack's heart sank as he quickly cleaned the motionless bundle, seeing no signs of life. He was about to tell Emma when she reached for the puppy with a desperate sound, the first real noise Jack had heard from her in 6 months. She cradled the tiny body in her hands, bringing it close to her face. And then, in a voice hoarse from disuse but clear as day, Emma spoke. "Live, please live." 3 simple words that shattered the silence of the past 6 months. Jack froze, the towel in his hands forgotten, as he stared at his granddaughter. And then another miracle occurred. The puppy in Emma's hands twitched. Its tiny mouth opened in a gasp, and suddenly it was squirming, its high-pitched squeal filling the barn. "Emma," Jack whispered, tears filling his eyes. "You spoke." Emma looked up at her grandfather, and for the first time since the accident, a small smile curved her lips. She carefully placed the now-moving puppy near Luna's side where it immediately began to nurse. "They need us, Grandpa," Emma said, her voice stronger now. "Bad people tried to hurt them." Jack couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the sound of Emma's voice after so many months of silence. But there was no time to celebrate this breakthrough. Luna was still in labor, struggling to deliver the rest of her litter. By the time the sun rose, painting the barn in golden light, Luna had delivered 4 more puppies. All survived, though the last one, a tiny male with unusual golden eyes, had been another close call, once again responding to Emma's whispered pleas. Jack sat back on his heels, exhausted but relieved. Both dogs were resting now, their puppies nursing hungrily. Emma sat between the 2 stalls, her face peaceful for the first time in months. "How did you know they were there?" Jack finally asked, the question that had been burning in his mind since they'd found the dogs. "How did you know to go to the creek?" Emma's eyes met his, and Jack was struck by the wisdom they held, a knowledge that seemed impossible for a 5-year-old. "I heard them," she said simply. "In here," she tapped her temple. Jack nodded, too tired to question this explanation. There would be time for that later. For now, he was just grateful to hear his granddaughter's voice again. "And the lock? How did you open it?" Emma looked down and at her hands, a small frown forming between her eyebrows. "I just told it to open, and it did." Jack might have dismissed this as a child's imagination if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. The impossible moment when the heavy padlock sprang open at Emma's touch. "Well," he said finally, "whatever happened, you saved their lives. All 11 of them." Emma's smile returned, lighting up her face in a way Jack had feared he might never see again. "They're special, Grandpa, especially Luna's puppies. They have stars in their hearts." Jack wasn't sure what to make of this statement, but he nodded anyway. "They're certainly fighters, just like their mamas." He paused, studying the dogs more carefully in the morning light. "Those markings on their ears, I've never seen anything like them. And did you notice the scars on Luna's side? Almost like surgical incisions." Emma's face darkened. "The bad people did tests. They put things inside them." A chill ran down Jack's spine. "What bad people, Emma? How do you know this?" Before Emma could answer, the sound of a vehicle coming up the driveway reached them. Jack stood, his tired muscles protesting the movement. "Stay here with the dogs," he told Emma. "I'll see who that is." Jack stepped out of the barn into the fresh morning air. The storm had passed, leaving behind a washed-clean world and considerable damage. Trees were down across the property, and the creek had overflowed its banks in several places. A police cruiser was pulling up to the house. Chief Diana Mitchell stepped out, her expression concerned as she spotted Jack. "Morning, Jack," she called, walking toward him. "Just checking on folks after that storm. You two okay out here?" Jack hesitated, unsure how much to share. Diana was a good woman, fair and honest. He'd known her since she was a rookie officer. "We're all right," he said finally, "but we found something strange during the storm. 2 dogs, pregnant ones, locked in a cage half submerged in the creek." Diana's eyebrows shot up. "Locked in a cage? In the creek?" "Someone left them there to drown," Jack said, the anger he had been too busy to feel now rising in his chest. "If Emma hadn't found them—" "Emma found them?" Diana asked, surprise evident in her voice. Everyone in town knew about Emma's condition since the accident. "She did more than find them," Jack said, unable to keep the wonder from his voice. "Diana," she spoke, for the first time in 6 months. Diana's face softened. "Jack, that's wonderful news." "There's something not right about these dogs," Jack continued, lowering his voice. "They've got strange markings, surgical scars. Emma says—" He hesitated. "She seems to think they were being used for some kind of tests." Diana's expression grew serious. "Where are they now?" "In the barn. Both delivered their litters overnight. Mind if I take a look?" Jack led Diana to the barn, where Emma sat exactly as he'd left her, between the 2 stalls. The little girl looked up as they entered, her expression immediately wary at the sight of the police chief. "It's okay, Emma," Jack assured her. "Chief Mitchell just wants to see the dogs." Diana knelt down to Emma's level, keeping a respectful distance. "Hi there, Emma. Your grandpa tells me you did something really brave last night." Emma didn't respond, but her eyes tracked Diana's every movement as the police chief examined first Stella and her puppies, then Luna and hers. "These markings aren't normal tags," Diana murmured, examining Luna's ear. "And these scars—" She straightened up, her expression troubled. "Jack, I don't want to alarm you, but there have been reports from neighboring counties. Animals disappearing, mostly dogs. Some rumors about a research facility outside of town." Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with his damp clothes. "Research? What kind of research?" Diana shook her head. "Not sure, but I think I should make some calls." As Diana stepped outside to use her radio, Jack turned to Emma, who was clutching the smallest of Luna's puppies, the one with the golden eyes. "Emma, how did you know about the tests?" he asked gently. Emma looked up at him, her eyes suddenly filled with tears. "They tried to test me too, Grandpa, before the accident." Jack felt as if the ground had dropped away beneath his feet. "What? What are you talking about, sweetie?" Emma stroked the puppy's small head, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Mom found out. That's why the car crashed. They made it crash." Before Jack could process this bombshell, a new sound reached them. Another vehicle approaching, this one moving fast. Diana stepped back into the barn, her hand resting on her service weapon. "Jack, get Emma and the dogs to the back of the barn," she ordered, her voice tense. "That's not a police vehicle, and they're driving like they know exactly where they're going." Jack lifted Emma, who clutched Luna's golden-eyed puppy, to her chest. "What's happening?" he asked Diana. "I don't know," she replied, moving toward the barn door, "but I've got a bad feeling about it." Through the open door, Jack could see a black SUV with tinted windows pulling up beside Diana's cruiser. Two men in dark suits stepped out, followed by a third man in a lab coat. "Them," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. "It's them, the bad people." Jack held Emma tighter, his mind racing. What had his granddaughter been through? What were these men after? And most importantly, how were they going to keep Emma and these mysterious dogs safe from whatever was coming? As the men approached the barn, Jack made a split-second decision. He set Emma down behind some stacked hay bales. "Stay here," he whispered urgently. "Don't make a sound." The smallest puppy whimpered in Emma's arms, and she gently covered its muzzle with her hand, her eyes wide with fear, but also with a determination that seemed far beyond her years. Jack moved to stand beside Diana as the strangers reached the barn door. The man in the lab coat stepped forward, a practiced smile on his face that didn't reach his cold eyes. "Good morning," he said smoothly. "I'm Dr. Victor Reed from Starlight Research Facility. I believe you found some animals that belong to us." Diana stepped forward, her stance protective. "I'm Chief Mitchell. Those animals were found abandoned and abused, locked in a cage in the creek during a flood. They were left to drown." Dr. Reed's smile didn't falter. "A most unfortunate situation. One of our transport vehicles was caught in the storm last night. The driver lost control near the creek. We've been searching for our missing research subjects since then." Jack felt his blood run cold at the casual way Reed referred to the dogs as research subjects. He stepped forward, unable to contain his anger. "Those dogs were in a locked cage, half-starved and pregnant. That doesn't sound like an accident to me." One of the men in suits moved his hand inside his jacket, but Reed raised a hand, stopping him. "I understand your concern," Reed said, his voice silky smooth, "but I assure you, these animals are part of a very important research program. We have all the proper permits and authorizations." He reached into his coat and pulled out an official-looking identification card and a folded document. Diana took them, her expression neutral as she examined the credentials. "Looks legitimate," she said after a moment, though Jack noticed a slight narrowing of her eyes. "But I'm still concerned about the condition of these animals." "As am I," Reed replied, his concern so clearly fabricated that Jack wanted to call him out on it. "That's why we need to get them back to our facility immediately, especially if they have delivered their litters. The puppies are a vital part of our research." Jack exchanged a quick glance with Diana. Neither of them had mentioned that the dogs had already given birth. "What exactly is this research?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Reed's smile tightened slightly. "I'm afraid that's classified, government contract, but I can assure you it's for the greater good." "I need to make some calls to verify these credentials," Diana said, holding up the ID and documents. "In the meantime, these animals need rest. They've been through a traumatic experience." Reed's eyes hardened, though his smile remained in place. "Chief Mitchell, I respect your position, but I must insist. These animals represent millions in research funding. Every hour they're away from the facility compromises years of work." "And I must insist on following proper procedure," Diana replied firmly. "If they belong to your facility, you'll get them back, after I've verified everything and made sure they're stable enough for transport." The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jack held his breath, aware of Emma hiding just a few yards away, clutching the golden-eyed puppy to her chest. Reed seemed to calculate his options, then nodded slightly. "Very well. We'll wait while you make your calls, but I warn you, Chief Mitchell, interfering with government research can have serious consequences. Threatening a police officer can also have consequences, Dr. Reed, Diana replied, her hand still resting casually near her weapon. Now, if you'll excuse me. She stepped outside to make her calls, positioning herself where she could keep an eye on both the barn entrance and the men from the research facility. Jack remained at the barn door, blocking entry. The dogs need quiet. They've just delivered their puppies. Reed's eyes glinted with interest. All the puppies survived? How many in each litter? Something in his tone made Jack's skin crawl. I didn't count, he lied. Reed studied him for a long moment, then glanced past him into the dim interior of the barn. And where is your granddaughter, Mr. Harper? I understand she's been through a difficult time. Jack stiffened. How do you know about my granddaughter? Small town, Reed replied with a dismissive wave of his hand. News travels. I heard about the tragic accident that took her mother. Such a shame. Before Jack could respond, a small noise from the back of the barn caught Reed's attention. His head turned sharply, eyes narrowing as he tried to peer past Jack into the shadows. Was that a child? Is she here? Reed asked, taking a step forward. Jack blocked his path. My granddaughter is none of your concern, Dr. Reed. For a brief moment, Reed's carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. Then the practiced smile returned. Of course, forgive my intrusion. Outside, they could hear Diana speaking firmly on her radio, though the words were indistinct. One of the suited men whispered something to Reed, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Mr. Harper, Reed said, his tone suddenly friendly, may I at least examine the dogs from here to ensure they're in stable condition? As a veterinarian, I'm sure you understand my concern. Jack hesitated. He didn't want Reed anywhere near the dogs or Emma, but refusing such a reasonable request might escalate the situation. You can look from the doorway, Jack said finally, but that's as far as you go until Chief Mitchell clears you. Reed nodded, his eyes already scanning the barn interior. Jack stepped aside slightly, allowing Reed to see the stalls where Stella and Luna lay with their puppies, but keeping himself positioned to block any attempt to enter. Reed's eyes widened slightly as he spotted the dogs and their litters. Remarkable, he murmured, almost to himself. Both litters survived, and the specimen with the modified genetics. Did it display any unusual characteristics during birth? Jack's unease deepened. I don't know what you're talking about. Reed's eyes snapped back to Jack's face, studying him intently. No, perhaps you just haven't noticed yet. His gaze returned to the stalls. The runt of the second litter. Does it have golden eyes by chance? Jack felt as if the ground had dropped away beneath his feet. How could Reed know about the golden-eyed puppy? Unless... Time's up, Diana said sharply, returning to the barn entrance. Step back, Dr. Reed. Reed complied, but his eyes never left the interior of the barn. Did you confirm my credentials, Chief Mitchell? I confirmed that Starlight Research Facility exists, Diana said carefully, but I also learned that there have been several complaints filed against your facility for ethical violations. The State Veterinary Board has an open investigation. Reed's smile vanished. Those complaints are baseless, competitors trying to undermine our work. Maybe so, Diana replied, but until I get clearance from the state authorities, these animals stay here where I know they're being properly cared for. The two suited men moved closer to Reed, their stances aggressive. Diana's hand moved to her weapon. I wouldn't, she warned. Assaulting a police officer won't help your case. For a tense moment, Jack thought the men might ignore her warning. Then Reed placed a restraining hand on each of their arms. That won't be necessary, he said quietly. We'll do this by the book. He turned back to Diana. How long will your verification process take, Chief? Hard to say, Diana replied. It's the weekend. Might be Monday before I can reach the right people. Reed's expression hardened. That's unacceptable. These animals are critical to our research. Your research will have to wait, Diana said firmly. Now, I suggest you return to your facility. I'll contact you when I have more information. Reed stared at her for a long moment, then nodded stiffly. Very well. But understand this, Chief Mitchell, these animals represent years of highly classified research. Their retrieval is a matter of national security. Noted, Diana said dryly. I'll be sure to mention that when I speak to the state authorities. With a final cold look, Reed turned and walked back to the black SUV, his two associates following closely. Jack and Diana watched as they drove away, neither speaking until the vehicle disappeared down the long driveway. "What do you make of that?" Jack asked quietly. Diana shook her head. "Nothing good. Those credentials are real enough, but something's off, very off." She turned to face Jack. "There's no record of any transport accident last night, and the State Veterinary Board really does have an open investigation into Starlight research." "He knew about the golden-eyed puppy," Jack said, the realization still sending chills down his spine. "How could he know that?" Diana's expression darkened. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." She glanced at her watch. "I need to make more calls, see what I can find out about this Starlight place. Will you be okay here for now?" Jack nodded. "We'll be fine. I've got my old shotgun in the house if they come back." "Keep it handy," Diana advised, "and call me immediately if they return. I don't like this, Jack, not one bit." After Diana left, Jack secured the barn doors and went to where Emma was still hiding with the golden-eyed puppy. "They're gone for now, sweetie," he said, helping her up, "but we need to be careful." Emma looked up at him, her eyes filled with a knowledge far beyond her years. "They'll come back," she said softly. "They always come back." Jack knelt down to her level. "Emma, what you said before, about them testing you, what did you mean? What happened before the accident?" Emma's face clouded. "Mom took me to doctors, not regular doctors. They did tests. They said I was special." She stroked the golden-eyed puppy's head. "Like him." "What kind of tests, honey?" Jack pressed gently. Emma shook her head. "I don't remember all of it. They made me look at cards, made me try to guess things, put things on my head to read my brain." Her small face scrunched up in concentration. "Then Mom found something. She was really angry. She took me away from there. She said we had to run." Jack felt sick. His daughter-in-law had never mentioned anything about this. "And then the accident happened?" Emma nodded solemnly. "The black car made us crash. Mom told me to be quiet about everything, to never tell. She said it wasn't safe." Tears filled her eyes. "That's why I stopped talking. I promised Mom." Jack pulled Emma into a tight hug, his mind reeling. If what she was saying was true, and he had no reason to doubt her, then the accident that killed his daughter-in-law might not have been an accident at all. "Why are you talking now?" he asked softly. Emma pulled back to look at the dogs and their puppies. "They needed help, and—" she hesitated. "I can hear them, Grandpa, in my head. They talk to me." Under normal circumstances, Jack might have dismissed this as a child's imagination, but after everything that had happened, the way Emma had led them directly to the dogs, the impossible opening of the padlock, the golden-eyed puppy reviving at her touch, he found himself believing her. "What do they say?" he asked. "They were made special," Emma whispered. "The scientists put things in them, changed them. They can feel things other dogs can't, see things." She looked down at the golden-eyed puppy. "This one is the most special. He can make people see things that aren't there." Jack struggled to process this information. It sounded impossible, like something from a science fiction movie. And yet, "Emma, how long have you been able to hear animals like this?" "Always," she answered simply. "But it got stronger after the tests. That's why the doctors wanted me. That's why they're still looking for me." A terrible suspicion formed in Jack's mind. "Dr. Reed and the research facility, are they the ones who tested you?" Emma nodded, fear flashing across her face. "He was there. He watched through the window." Jack's protective instincts surged. "Emma, listen to me. Those men are never going to take you or these dogs. I promise you that." Emma studied his face, then nodded solemnly. "We need to hide them better. They have machines that can find the special puppies." "What kind of machines?" "Tracking things," Emma said, struggling to explain. "In the dogs, under their skin." Jack thought about the strange scars he'd noticed on Luna. "Implants of some kind?" Emma nodded. "I can remove those," Jack said, his jaw set with determination. "I was a vet for 30 years. If there are trackers in these dogs, I can find them and take them out." For the first time since the conversation began, Emma's face brightened with hope. "Really?" "Really," Jack assured her. "But first, let's get everyone more comfortable." Over the next few hours, Jack transformed the back section of the barn into a secure shelter for the dogs and puppies. He moved clean straw, water, and food to the area, and created a small barricade that would hide them from casual view while still allowing air circulation. Emma never left the animals' side, particularly the golden-eyed puppy she had saved. Jack noticed that the puppy seemed equally attached to Emma, whimpering whenever she moved too far away. While Emma stayed with the dogs, Jack went to the house to gather his old veterinary equipment. He hadn't used it in years, but he kept everything clean and organized out of habit. He also took the opportunity to call his old friend and former colleague, Dr. Marcus Wilson. "Mark, it's Jack Harper," he said when his friend answered. "I need your help with something unusual, something that needs to stay between us." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Name it, Jack." "I've got 2 German Shepherds that may have tracking devices implanted in them. I need to locate and remove them." There was a pause on the line. "Tracking devices? What have you gotten yourself into, Jack?" "It's complicated," Jack replied, "but these dogs were being mistreated, and the people responsible want them back. I can't let that happen." Another pause. "This wouldn't have anything to do with those rumors about Starlight research, would it?" Jack's grip tightened on the phone. "You know about Starlight?" "Just rumors," Marcus said, his voice dropping. "Strange stuff. Animals disappearing. Some talk about genetic experiments. Nothing concrete, but enough smoke to make me think there's fire." "The rumors are true," Jack said grimly, "and it gets worse. They've been experimenting on humans too. At least one human I know for sure." "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "Who?" "Emma." The silence on the line stretched for several seconds. "Your granddaughter? Jack, are you sure about this?" "She told me herself, and after what I've seen in the last 24 hours, I believe her." Jack quickly explained about finding the dogs, Emma's sudden return to speech, and the strange abilities she claimed the dogs possessed. When he finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "This sounds crazy, Jack." "I know how it sounds," Jack admitted, "but I've seen things that I can't explain. And those men from Starlight, they knew details they couldn't possibly know unless Emma is telling the truth." "All right," Marcus said finally. "I'm with you. What do you need? If these dogs do have trackers, I need to know what they look like, how to find them." "You're thinking microchips, like we use for pets?" "Maybe, but more advanced. Emma said they were put in surgically." Marcus hummed thoughtfully. "If they're subdermal implants, they might be visible with an ultrasound. I've got a portable unit I use for farm calls. I can bring it over." "That would be perfect," Jack said, relief flooding through him. "How soon can you get here?" "Give me an hour. And Jack, be careful. If what you're saying is true, these people aren't going to give up easily." After hanging up, Jack gathered a few more supplies and returned to the barn. He found Emma sitting between the 2 mother dogs, her eyes closed and her hands resting lightly on each dog's head. The scene was so peaceful that Jack hesitated to disturb her. As if sensing his presence, Emma opened her eyes. "They're tired, Grandpa, but they feel safe now." Jack set down his supplies and knelt beside her. "Dr. Marcus is coming to help us look for those tracking things you mentioned. He'll be here soon." Emma nodded. "Luna says hers is near her heart. Stella's is behind her ear." Jack marveled at the matter-of-fact way Emma relayed this information. "They told you that?" "Yes," Emma said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "They can feel them. The trackers hurt sometimes." Jack felt a surge of anger at whoever had subjected these animals, and his granddaughter, to such treatment. "We'll get them out," he promised. Emma's attention suddenly shifted to the barn door. "Someone's coming," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Not the bad men. A woman." Seconds later, Jack heard the sound of a car coming up the driveway. He moved to the barn door and peered out cautiously. Relief washed over him as he recognized Diana's police cruiser. He opened the door to greet her. "Any news?" Diana's expression was grim as she stepped into the barn. "Nothing good. Starlight Research has some serious political protection. When I started asking questions, I got shut down fast. My captain called and told me to back off. Said it was a matter of national security." "You can't be serious," Jack said, disbelief coloring his voice. "Dead serious," Diana replied. "Whatever they're doing at that facility has high-level clearance." She lowered her voice. "But I've got a friend in the state attorney general's office. She's looking into it quietly." Emma appeared at Jack's side, the golden-eyed puppy cradled in her arms. Diana's eyes widened slightly as she noticed the puppy's unusual eye color. "Hello, Emma," Diana said gently. "Is that one of the puppies you helped save?" Emma nodded, holding the puppy a little closer. "His name is Nova." Diana knelt down to Emma's level. "That's a good name. He has beautiful eyes." They made him special, Emma said, watching Diana carefully. Like they tried to make me. Diana's eyes flickered to Jack, who nodded grimly. She says she was tested at Starlight before the accident, that her mother found out something and tried to run, that the accident wasn't really an accident. Diana's face paled slightly. Emma, do you remember what your mom found out? What made her want to leave? Emma's brow furrowed in concentration. Papers. She found papers in a computer. She was really scared. She said they were doing bad things to kids like me, kids who could hear things others couldn't. And the accident? Diana prompted gently. A black car followed us. It hit us from behind. We went off the road. Emma's voice trembled. Mom told me to be quiet, to never tell about the tests or what I could do. She said they'd take me away if they knew. Diana's jaw tightened. So, you stopped talking? Emma nodded. Until now. Diana stood, her expression resolute. Jack, you and Emma aren't safe here. Neither are the dogs. If what Emma's saying is true, and I believe it is, these people will be back, and next time, they won't take no for an answer. What do you suggest? Jack asked, though he already knew they would have to leave. I have a cabin up in the mountains. It's remote, hard to find unless you know it's there. You could take Emma and the dogs there until we figure this out. Jack considered the offer. Marcus is on his way over to help me locate and remove any tracking devices in the dogs. Once that's done, we could leave. Diana nodded. Good. The sooner the better. She hesitated. Jack, I should warn you, this goes deep. Whoever these people are, they've got influence. I can help, but I need to be careful. We all do. I understand, Jack said, placing a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. We'll do whatever it takes to keep everyone safe. As if on cue, the golden-eyed puppy, Nova, lifted his head and let out a small whine. Emma stroked his fur gently. He says more people are coming, she whispered. Lots of them. Diana and Jack exchanged alarmed glances. How far away? Diana asked, not questioning how Emma could know such a thing. Emma tilted her head, as if listening. Not close yet, but coming fast. Diana moved quickly to the barn door, peering out toward the long driveway. I don't see anything yet, but we should assume they're on their way. Jack, how quickly can you pack what you need? 15 minutes, Jack replied, already mentally listing the essentials. But how will we transport the dogs and puppies? They're too weak to travel far, and there are 11 puppies between them. Diana thought for a moment. My cruiser and your truck, we can make it work. A new voice spoke from the barn entrance. Make what work? They all turned to see Marcus standing in the doorway, a medical bag in one hand and a portable ultrasound machine in the other. He took in the scene with a raised eyebrow. Looks like I missed something, he said. What's the emergency? Diana quickly explained the situation while Jack and Emma gathered blankets and created makeshift transport boxes for the puppies. Marcus listened with increasing alarm. I knew the rumors about Starlight were bad, but this... He shook his head. This is something else entirely. Will you help us? Jack asked, pausing in his preparations. Marcus didn't hesitate. Of course I will. Let's get those trackers out first. Then we can worry about transport. The adults worked quickly, setting up the ultrasound equipment beside the stalls where the mother dogs rested with their puppies. Emma stayed close, translating what she said the dogs were telling her about the locations of the implants. To everyone's amazement, Emma's information proved accurate. The ultrasound revealed a small device near Luna's heart, exactly where Emma had indicated. A similar device was found behind Stella's ear, hidden beneath the fur. Incredible, Marcus murmured as he prepared to remove the first device from Stella. I've never seen anything like these. They're far more sophisticated than standard microchips. He worked carefully, using local anesthetic to numb the area before making a small incision. The device he extracted was smaller than a dime, but contained complex circuitry. What should we do with it? Jack asked, staring at the tiny tracker in Marcus's hand. Destroy it, Diana said firmly. Wait, Emma interrupted, her small voice surprisingly authoritative. Put it on something that moves away from us. They'll follow it. The adults exchanged impressed glances. Smart thinking, Diana said, nodding approvingly. I can attach it to a truck headed in the opposite direction from where we're going. As Marcus prepared to remove the second device from Luna, a new tension filled the air. Emma suddenly stiffened, the golden-eyed puppy in her arms letting out a low whine. They're here, she whispered, her face pale with fear. The bad people. Lots of them. Diana moved quickly to the barn door, peering out through a small gap. Black SUVs. At least 3 of them. And they're armed. Jack's blood ran cold. Armed? This is a private farm, not a military base. These aren't ordinary researchers, Diana said grimly, drawing her service weapon. Marcus, how close are you to finishing with that tracker? Marcus worked with steady hands despite the growing tension. Almost there. 2 more minutes. We might not have 2 minutes, Diana replied, watching as men in tactical gear began to exit the vehicles. Jack, get everything you need, now. Jack moved swiftly, grabbing the prepared transport boxes for the puppies, while Emma helped settle the little ones inside. Diana kept watch at the door, her expression growing more concerned by the second. Dr. Reed is with them, she reported. And someone else. Looks military. Jack glanced around the barn, mind racing. There's a back exit through the storage room. It leads to the woods. If we can get to my truck without being seen... Diana nodded. I'll create a diversion. Buy you some time. I'm not leaving you here alone, Jack protested. You're not, Diana countered. I'll be right behind you. But someone needs to slow them down, and I'm the only one with a badge and gun. Before Jack could argue further, Emma spoke up. Nova can help. He can make them see things that aren't real. The adults exchanged uncertain glances. Diana was the first to respond. Emma, honey, I'm not sure. Watch, Emma said simply, kneeling beside the golden-eyed puppy. She whispered something to the small animal, stroking its head gently. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, to the astonishment of everyone in the barn, multiple copies of Nova appeared around them. Identical golden-eyed puppies, all moving independently. Good Lord, Marcus breathed, nearly dropping his medical tools. How is that possible? Jack stared in disbelief. What are we seeing? Projections, Emma explained calmly. He can make people see what he wants them to see. The other puppies can do it too, but not as strong. She looked up at Diana. They can help with the diversion. Diana, to her credit, recovered quickly from the shock. All right, we use everything we've got. Marcus, finish with that tracker. Jack, get the transport ready. I'll talk to these people, try to slow them down. As Marcus finally extracted the second tracking device from Luna, Jack finished securing the mother dogs and their puppies in the transport boxes, leaving only Nova out. Emma held the golden-eyed puppy close, whispering in his ear. Diana approached them. Ready? Jack nodded, handing her the first tracking device. According to the plan, Diana took it, tucking it into her pocket. I'm going out there. Wait for my signal. With a deep breath, Diana stepped outside to confront the approaching men. Through the crack in the door, Jack watched as she identified herself and moved to intercept Dr. Reed and the others. That's our cue, Jack said quietly. Let's move. They crept toward the back of the barn, Marcus carrying Luna while Jack handled Stella. Emma followed with Nova and one of the transport boxes containing puppies, while Jack managed the other box. As they reached the storage room, a commotion erupted outside. Multiple barking sounds came from seemingly all directions, followed by shouts of confusion. Nova's projections, Emma whispered, a small smile playing at her lips. They slipped through the back door into the tree line just as gunshots rang out. Jack's heart nearly stopped. Diana, he breathed. Keep going, Marcus urged. We need to reach the trucks. They moved as quickly as possible through the woods, the sounds of chaos continuing behind them. Jack couldn't help but worry about Diana, but his primary focus had to be Emma and the dogs. They reached the small clearing where Jack's truck and Marcus's SUV were parked. Working quickly, they loaded the mother dogs and puppies into Marcus's more spacious vehicle. You take Emma and the dogs, Jack told Marcus. I'm going back for Diana. No, Grandpa! Emma cried, clutching his arm. They'll catch you. I can't leave her back there, Jack insisted. A rustling in the bushes made them all freeze. Jack positioned himself in front of Emma, ready to protect her at any cost. To their immense relief, Diana emerged from the trees, breathless but unharmed. It worked, she gasped. The tracking device and those illusions, they're completely confused. Some are chasing shadows in the east field, others are following my cruiser. I attached the tracker to it and sent Deputy Collins driving away with it. You're not hurt? Jack asked, scanning her for injuries. Not a scratch, Diana assured him. But we need to move. They'll figure it out soon enough. With Diana now part of their escape group, they quickly finalized the plan. Marcus would take Emma, Nova, and Luna with her puppies in his SUV. Jack would transport Stella and her puppies in his truck. Diana would lead the way in her personal vehicle, which she'd hidden nearby for emergencies. "We'll take the mountain roads," Diana instructed. "Less chance of being spotted." As they prepared to separate, Emma suddenly froze, her expression alarmed. "They know," she whispered. "They're coming." As if to confirm her warning, the distant sound of engines reached them. Jack hugged Emma quickly. "Go with Dr. Marcus. I'll be right behind you." Emma nodded bravely, though fear shone in her eyes. "Be careful, Grandpa." "Always am, sweet pea." They split into their assigned vehicles and pulled away just as the first of the black SUVs appeared at the edge of the clearing. Jack caught a glimpse of armed men pouring out of the vehicles before the trees obscured his view. The mountain roads were treacherous under the best of conditions. In their current state, still muddy from the recent storm, they were downright dangerous. But danger behind them outweighed the danger ahead, so they pushed on. Diana's car leading the way with Marcus following and Jack bringing up the rear. For the first hour, there was no sign of pursuit. Jack began to hope they might have truly escaped. Then, rounding a sharp bend, he spotted a black helicopter in the distance, moving in a search pattern over the forest. "They're not giving up," he muttered grimly, pressing the accelerator. Diana's cabin was tucked deep in the mountains, accessible only by a narrow dirt road that didn't appear on most maps. By the time they reached it, dusk was falling, casting long shadows through the trees. The cabin itself was sturdy and well-maintained, with a large covered porch and thick wooden walls. A small generator provided electricity, and a natural spring supplied fresh water. It was the perfect hiding place, remote yet comfortable enough for their unusual group. Once inside, they quickly established a makeshift veterinary area for the mother dogs and puppies. Marcus checked each animal, relieved to find they had all weathered the journey well. "The mothers need rest and good nutrition," he explained as he worked, "but they're remarkably resilient, considering what they've been through." Emma never left Nova's side, the bond between them growing stronger by the hour. The golden-eyed puppy seemed equally attached to her, whimpering whenever she moved too far away. As night fell, they gathered around the cabin's small kitchen table, speaking in low voices, despite being miles from the nearest person. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," Diana said, her expression serious. "Emma, can you tell us more about what happened at Starlight? What kind of tests did they do?" Emma clutched Nova closer, her face troubled. "They showed me pictures, asked me what I felt, put things on my head to read my brain." She frowned, struggling to articulate complex experiences. "They wanted to know how I could hear animals, how I knew things before they happened." "You're empathic," Marcus suggested gently. "You can sense things others can't." Emma nodded. "The dogs are like me, especially Nova and his brothers and sisters. They were made to be like me." "Made?" Jack asked, a chill running down his spine. "Changed," Emma clarified. "The scientists put things in their mothers before they were born, to make the puppies special." Diana leaned forward. "And why would they want to do that, Emma? What's the purpose?" Emma's brow furrowed in concentration. "To find things. Things humans can't see or hear or smell. Dangerous things." "What kind of dangerous things?" Marcus prompted. "Poisons? Bombs? Sickness?" Emma looked down at Nova. "They can feel them before they hurt people." The adults exchanged troubled glances. If Emma was right, Starlight was attempting to create some kind of enhanced detection animals, living sensors that could identify threats before conventional technology. "That's why they're so desperate to get them back," Jack realized. "These dogs represent millions in research funding." "More than funding," Diana said darkly. "Think of the military applications, the security contracts." "But why involve children?" Marcus asked, the question they were all thinking. "Why put Emma through tests?" "Because I was born with it," Emma said simply. "They wanted to understand how I do it, so they could make the dogs do it too." The implications were chilling. A research facility experimenting on both animals and children, backed by powerful interests, willing to kill to protect their secrets. "We need evidence," Diana said after a long silence. "Something to take to the authorities that can't be brushed aside or buried." "Emma's testimony," Jack began. "Won't be enough," Diana cut in gently. "Not against an organization with this kind of political protection. We need hard evidence, documents, records." "Mom took some," Emma said suddenly. All eyes turned to her. "She put them on a small computer thing." She hid it before the crash. Jack's pulse quickened. A flash drive? Your mother hid a flash drive? Emma nodded. In my teddy bear, the one I always carry. The bear in your room? Jack asked, his mind racing. The one on your bed? Another nod. Inside his tummy, there's a little zipper. Jack closed his eyes briefly, remembering the stuffed bear Emma had clutched constantly after the accident. The same bear he'd left sitting on her bed when they fled the farm. We need to get that drive, Diana said, voicing what they were all thinking. They'll be watching the farm, Marcus pointed out. I have to try, Jack said firmly. If that drive contains what Emma says it does, it's our only chance of stopping these people. I'll go with you, Diana offered. Jack shook his head. No, Emma and the dogs need protection. I have a better chance of slipping in and out unnoticed on my own. It's too dangerous, Marcus argued. More dangerous than living on the run for the rest of our lives, Jack countered. More dangerous than knowing these people will never stop looking for Emma and these dogs. No one had an answer for that. I'll leave before dawn, Jack continued. With luck, I can be back by nightfall tomorrow. The decision made, they spent the rest of the evening securing the cabin and caring for the dogs. Emma helped feed the puppies, her gentle touch and soft words seemingly understood by the animals. Nova remained particularly attentive to her, his golden eyes following her every movement. As Jack prepared a small pack for his journey back to the farm, he found Emma watching him from the doorway, Nova at her feet. You're worried, she said. Not a question, but a statement. Jack managed a small smile. A little, but I'll be careful. Emma approached, holding something out in her small hand. It was the second tracking device, the one Marcus had removed from Luna. Take this, she said, but don't turn it on until you're away from here. Jack took the tiny device, impressed by her strategic thinking. A diversion. Smart thinking, sweet pea. Nova taught me, Emma said with a small smile. He knows about hiding and tricks.
Jack knelt down to her level. You and Nova take care of everyone while I'm gone, okay?
Emma nodded solemnly, then surprised Jack by throwing her arms around his neck in a tight hug. Come back, she whispered fiercely. Promise. I promise, Jack replied, holding her close. Nothing could keep me away. In the gray light before dawn, Jack set out alone, armed with Diana's spare pistol and a determination to secure the evidence that might save his granddaughter. The others watched from the cabin porch until he disappeared into the trees. The journey back was tense but uneventful. Jack stuck to animal trails and stream beds, avoiding roads and open areas. By mid-afternoon, he reached the ridge overlooking his farm. What he saw made his heart sink. Armed guards patrolled the property, and several vehicles were parked around the house and barn. Starlight Research had established a full surveillance operation. Never do anything the easy way, do you, Jack? He muttered to himself, settling in to watch and wait for darkness. As night fell, Jack activated the tracking device, placing it on a fallen branch that he sent floating down the stream that ran near the farm. The effect was almost immediate. Several guards moved toward the stream, following the signal. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jack crept toward the house, using the shadows for cover. He reached the back door without incident, relieved to find they hadn't changed the locks. Slipping inside, he moved silently through the familiar rooms to Emma's bedroom. The teddy bear sat exactly where he had last seen it, perched on Emma's neatly made bed. Jack quickly located the small zipper in the bear's seam and extracted a tiny flash drive. Mission accomplished, he turned to leave and found himself face to face with Dr. Reed. Mr. Harper, Reed said, his voice cold but triumphant, how predictable that you would return. Where is your granddaughter? Jack backed away slowly, one hand closing around the flash drive, the other reaching for Diana's pistol. Far away from you, he growled. A temporary situation, I assure you, Reed had replied smoothly. He glanced at Jack's clenched fist. I see you found what you came for. I'm afraid I can't let you leave with that. You experimented on children, Jack said, anger overwhelming his fear. On my granddaughter. You caused the accident that killed her mother. Reed didn't deny it. Regrettable, but necessary. Your daughter-in-law didn't understand the importance of our work. His eyes hardened. Just as you don't understand. Jack drew the pistol, pointing it steadily at Reed. I understand enough. Now, move aside. Reed's smile was chilling. You won't shoot me, Mr. Harper. You're not a killer. Try me, Jack replied, his voice deadly calm. When it comes to protecting Emma, There's nothing I wouldn't do." For a tense moment, they stared at each other, a silent battle of wills. Then, surprisingly, Reed stepped aside. "It doesn't matter," he said with disturbing confidence. "We'll find her eventually. The puppies will lead us right to her, especially the special one. Their connection works both ways, you know. We can track him through her." Jack's blood ran cold at this revelation, but he kept his expression neutral as he backed toward the window, guns still trained on Reed. "This ends now," Jack said, holding up the flash drive. "Whatever is on this will expose you." Reed's laugh was genuinely amused. "You think you were the first to try? Starlight is protected at the highest levels. We're untouchable." "No one is untouchable," Jack replied, reaching the window. "Not anymore." With that, he slipped out into the night, running for the cover of the trees. To his surprise, no alarm sounded, no guards appeared to chase him. Reed's confidence was more terrifying than pursuit would have been. Jack's mind raced as he made his way back toward the mountains. If what Reed said was true, if they could track Nova through his connection with Emma, then they were all still in danger. He needed to get back to the cabin, to warn the others, to figure out their next move. As dawn broke on his second day of travel, Jack finally reached the hidden turn that led to Diana's cabin. Exhausted but determined, he pushed forward, the flash drive secure in his pocket. Then he heard it, the distant thrum of helicopter rotors. Jack's heart sank as he emerged from the trees to see a black helicopter landing in the clearing near the cabin. Armed men poured out, surrounding the small building. "No," Jack breathed, breaking into a run despite his exhaustion. He was too late. Through the trees he could see Emma being led from the cabin, Nova clutched in her arms. Diana and Marcus followed, hands raised, guards flanking them on all sides. Dr. Reed stepped forward to meet them, his expression triumphant as he took Emma's face in his hand, forcing her to look at him. Jack stopped at the edge of the clearing, concealed by the underbrush. Rage and despair warred within him as he watched his granddaughter and friends being loaded into the helicopter. He was one man against an army. What could he possibly do? Then, as if sensing his presence, Emma turned in his direction. Their eyes met across the distance, and in that moment, Jack saw not fear in her expression, but determination. Emma's lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear but somehow understood. Use the drive. Find help. And then she was gone, the helicopter lifting off with a roar, carrying away everything Jack loved in this world. He stood alone in the forest, the flash drive heavy in his pocket, a new resolve hardening in his heart. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. What will Jack find on the flash drive? Will it be enough to save Emma and the special puppies from Starlight Research? Can he rescue them before it's too late? Jack watched the helicopter disappear over the mountains, his heart breaking, but his determination unwavering. He couldn't storm Starlight Research alone, but he could find help. He had the evidence. Now he needed allies. The cabin was deserted when he entered, signs of struggle evident in the overturned furniture and scattered belongings. Jack gathered what supplies he could, food, water, a first aid kit, and found Diana's emergency satellite phone tucked in a drawer. His first call was to Sheriff Ben Walker, an old friend from the next county over. "Jack, is that you?" Ben answered, his voice crackling through the connection. "Ben, I need your help," Jack said urgently. "My granddaughter's been kidnapped, along with Diana Mitchell and Dr. Marcus Wilson." A pause. "Kidnapped? By who?" "A research facility called Starlight. They're conducting illegal experiments on children and animals. I have proof, but I need somewhere safe to review it." Another pause, longer this time. "Jack, are you sure about this? These are serious accusations." "I'm sure, Ben. I saw it with my own eyes. Please, I need a safe place, somewhere they won't look for me." "All right," Ben finally replied. "I have a hunting cabin about 40 miles north of you. No one knows about it except me. I'll text you the coordinates." "Thank you," Jack breathed, relief washing over him. "One more thing. I need a laptop. Something not connected to me." "I can arrange that. Get to the cabin. I'll meet you there tonight." Jack ended the call and set out immediately, pushing his exhausted body beyond its limits. If what Reed had said was true, that they could track Nova through his connection with Emma, then nowhere was truly safe. He had to move quickly. The journey to Ben's cabin took hours, the terrain rough and his body running on nothing but adrenaline and fear for Emma. By the time he spotted the small wooden structure nestled among the pines, darkness had fallen again. Ben was waiting, his rugged face lined with concern as Jack stumbled into the cabin. "My God, Jack," he said, helping the older man to a chair. "You look like hell." "Feel worse," Jack admitted, his voice raspy from thirst and exhaustion. Ben handed him a bottle of water and a sandwich. "Eat, then we'll talk." After Jack had regained some strength, he recounted everything, finding the dogs, Emma's revelations, the strange abilities of the puppies, the escape, and finally the capture. Throughout the story, Ben's expression grew increasingly troubled. "If what you're saying is true," he said when Jack finished, "these people have resources and connections most law enforcement can't touch." "That's why I need the laptop," Jack replied. "Emma's mother hid evidence. I need to see what's on this drive." Ben produced a laptop from his bag. "It's clean, not registered to anyone." Jack inserted the tiny drive with trembling fingers. At first, nothing happened. Then a password prompt appeared on the screen. "Damn it," Jack muttered. "I need a password." "Try anything related to Emma or her mother," Ben suggested. Jack tried dozens of combinations. Birthdays, anniversaries, pet names, favorite places. Nothing worked. As desperation mounted, he paused, staring at the screen. "Wait," he whispered, a memory surfacing of Emma's mother singing a lullaby about stars to her daughter. "Twinkle stars," he typed carefully. The screen flashed, and suddenly folders appeared, dozens of them, filled with documents, photos, and videos. "She got in," Jack breathed, tears filling his eyes. Emma's mother hacked into their system. She downloaded everything. The files were damning. Detailed records of experiments conducted on both animals and children, genetic modification techniques, brain scans showing unusual activity patterns, and most disturbing of all, a list of subjects with Emma's name and photo among them. They identified kids with natural, empathic abilities, Jack explained, as they sifted through the files. Then they tried to replicate those abilities in animals through genetic manipulation. Ben's face had gone pale. This is beyond criminal. This is monstrous." "There's more," Jack said, opening another folder. "Financial records, government contracts." His eyes widened. "Military applications." The documents revealed Starlight's true purpose, creating living detection systems that could identify threats no technology could find. The enhanced animals would be used for everything from detecting biochemical weapons to anticipating enemy movements. "They're weaponizing empathy," Jack said, disgust evident in his voice. As they continued digging, they found something even more alarming. Evidence of a secondary facility, more isolated and secure than the main Starlight campus. "Site B," Ben read from the screen, "located in an abandoned mine complex. That's where they conduct the most sensitive experiments." Jack's heart raced. "That's where they've taken Emma and the others. They wouldn't risk bringing them to the main facility after everything that's happened." Ben studied the coordinates listed in the file. "This is deep in the mountains, barely accessible. No wonder no one's found it." "We need to get this information to someone who can help," Jack said urgently. "Someone with enough authority to stop these people." Ben thought for a moment. "I have a contact at the FBI, someone I trust. Let me make a call." While Ben stepped outside to use his phone, Jack continued examining the files. He found a document detailing the specific abilities of Luna's litter, each puppy apparently possessing different strengths. Nova, the golden-eyed runt, was listed as the most promising, with unique projective capabilities. There were also notes about the unexpected bond between subjects, how the connection between human and animal enhanced the abilities of both. A chill ran down Jack's spine as he realized why Reed was so determined to recapture both Emma and Nova. Together, their abilities would be exponentially more powerful. Ben returned, his expression grim but determined. "My contact will meet us tomorrow morning. She's bringing a team she trusts. Until then, we need to gather all the evidence and make a plan." "We don't have until tomorrow," Jack insisted. "Every hour Emma spends in that place." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Jack, I understand," Ben said gently. "But rushing in without backup would be suicide. These people have private security, advanced technology, and God knows what else." Jack knew Ben was right, but the thought of Emma frightened and alone was unbearable. He could only pray that Diana and Marcus were with her, offering some comfort and protection. "What about the other dogs?" Ben asked, changing the subject. "You said both mothers had litters." Jack frowned. "They only took Luna, Nova, and the other special puppies from her litter. Stella and her puppies must still be at the cabin." "We should retrieve them," Ben suggested. "They could be additional evidence. And if what you say about their abilities is true, they might even help us locate Emma and the others. It was a risk, but one worth taking. They decided Ben would go to Diana's cabin at first light to look for Stella and her puppies, while Jack would continue analyzing the files and prepare for the meeting with the FBI contact. Sleep eluded Jack that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's face as she was loaded into the helicopter. He replayed their final moment of eye contact, trying to draw strength from her unexpected courage. Morning dawned clear and cold. Ben left for Diana's cabin, while Jack organized the most damning evidence into a presentation the FBI couldn't ignore. Hours passed, with agonizing slowness. When Ben finally returned, he wasn't alone. Trotting beside him was Stella, looking exhausted but determined. 5 puppies followed in a neat line, their behavior unusually coordinated for such young animals. They were hiding in the root cellar, Ben explained. Smart dog. She kept them completely silent until I found them. Jack knelt to examine the German Shepherd and her puppies. They look okay, hungry and tired, but otherwise unharmed. As he checked each puppy, he noticed something unusual. Though they didn't have Nova's golden eyes, each puppy had distinctive markings, one with a perfect circle on its chest, another with unusual striped patterns on its paws. The files mention that each puppy has different abilities, Jack told Ben. These markings must be related to the genetic modifications. After feeding and settling the dogs, Jack and Ben prepared for the arrival of the FBI contact. Jack couldn't help but notice how Stella watched him, with an intelligence that seemed far beyond normal canine awareness. She knows, doesn't she? Ben asked, following Jack's gaze. She knows we're trying to help. Jack nodded slowly. Emma said the mothers were aware of everything, that they understood far more than normal dogs. A car approaching outside ended their conversation. Ben checked through the window before opening the door to admit a tall woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She was accompanied by 2 men who remained vigilantly alert, even inside the cabin. Sheriff Walker, she greeted Ben with a nod before turning to Jack. Mr. Harper, I'm Special Agent Karen Reeves. Ben tells me you have evidence of criminal activity at a research facility called Starlight. I do, Jack confirmed, gesturing to the laptop. More than evidence. I have proof of illegal experimentation on children and animals, falsified research permits, corporate espionage, and what amounts to kidnapping. Agent Reeves's expression remained professionally neutral, but Jack detected a flicker of interest in her eyes. Show me. For the next hour, Jack guided her through the most damning files, the records of experiments, the list of subjects, the financial documents showing millions diverted to secret projects, and finally, the coordinates of Site B. Throughout the presentation, Reeves remained silent, occasionally making notes or exchanging glances with her colleagues. When Jack finished, she closed her notebook and fixed him with an intense stare. Mr. Harper, what you've shown me is deeply disturbing. If authenticated, this evidence suggests criminal activity at the highest levels. She paused. But I need to be honest with you. Starlight Research has powerful protection. Taking action against them won't be simple. My granddaughter is in there, Jack said, his voice breaking slightly, along with 2 of my friends and animals who have been tortured for years. I don't care how complicated it is. They need to be stopped. Reeves nodded slowly. I agree, but we need to be strategic. A frontal assault on a facility like Site B would be disastrous. We need more intelligence. What about a warrant? Ben asked. Based on this evidence, I can request one, Reeves replied. But even with a warrant, we'd be walking into unknown territory with potentially dangerous variables. She glanced at Stella and her puppies. These animals, for instance. You say they have unusual abilities. What exactly are we dealing with? Jack exchanged a look with Ben. It's better if I show you. He approached Stella, whispering gently to her before turning to one of her puppies, a female with unusual white markings around her eyes. Emma had spent enough time with the dogs for Jack to understand some of their capabilities. This is Mercy, he said, placing a hand on the puppy's head. According to the files, she can sense emotions, fear, deception, intent to harm. She can tell us who to trust. Reeves looked skeptical but stepped forward. How does it work? Hold out your hand, Jack instructed. Let her approach you. Agent Reeves complied, kneeling down with her palm extended. The puppy approached cautiously, sniffing her hand before making direct eye contact. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Mercy gave a soft whine and gently licked Reeves's fingers. What does that mean? Reeves asked, trying to maintain her professional demeanor despite the obvious connection. It means she trusts you, Jack said simply, but more importantly, she can help us infiltrate Site B. According to the files, these puppies can detect surveillance systems, guards, even emotional states from a distance. Reeves stood, obviously reconsidering her approach. You're suggesting we use these dogs as, what, reconnaissance? Precisely, Jack confirmed. They can tell us where Emma and the others are being held, how many guards are present, and the safest way to enter. For the first time, Reeves showed genuine emotion, a mix of disbelief and grudging interest. This is unprecedented. So is Starlight's research, Jack replied grimly. Fighting fire with fire may be our only option. After much discussion, a plan began to take shape. Reeves would obtain the necessary warrants, while Jack and Ben would scout the area around Site B, using Stella and her puppies to gather intelligence. The FBI would assemble a specialized team for the actual rescue operation. We move tomorrow night, Reeves decided. That gives us time to prepare, but doesn't leave your granddaughter in there any longer than necessary. As Reeves and her team departed to make arrangements, Jack turned to Ben. Are we really doing this, using puppies to infiltrate a high-security research facility? Ben's expression was resolved. After what I've seen today, I'd believe almost anything. Besides, what choice do we have? Jack nodded grimly. None at all. They spent the remainder of the day preparing, studying satellite images of the area around Site B, reviewing the facility layouts found in the files, and testing the puppies' abilities. Each one demonstrated unique talents, sensing electronic devices, detecting lies, finding hidden passages, or even creating small diversionary illusions, similar to Nova's but less powerful. As night fell, Jack found himself sitting alone on the cabin porch, Stella at his feet. The mother dog's intelligent eyes seemed to be asking a question. We'll find them, Jack promised, stroking her head. We'll bring them home. Stella sighed softly, resting her head on Jack's foot in what felt remarkably like an expression of trust. The next morning brought heavy fog that clung to the mountains, perfect cover for their reconnaissance mission. Jack, Ben, and two of Reeves's agents set out for Site B, the dogs leading the way with uncanny purpose. The abandoned mine that housed Site B was well disguised, its entrance renovated to look like part of the mountain itself. Security cameras were mounted at strategic points, and armed guards patrolled the perimeter. How do we get past all that? One of the agents whispered, as they observed from a concealed position. Jack looked down at the puppy with circle markings. Oscar, according to the files. Show us, he said softly. To everyone's amazement, Oscar set off along a narrow deer trail, staying low to the ground. The humans followed, ducking under branches and squeezing between rocks until they reached a small opening half hidden by vegetation. A maintenance tunnel, Ben realized, examining the rusted grate that covered the opening. It's not on any of the schematics. Because it predates the facility, Jack surmised, part of the original mine. Using the tools they had brought, they carefully removed the grate and peered into the darkness beyond. The tunnel was narrow but passable, disappearing into the mountain.
This is our way in, Jack declared. Tonight, we bring Emma home.
They returned to the rendezvous point where Reeves waited with the rest of her team, 8 agents equipped with tactical gear and non-lethal weapons.
We found an entry point, Jack reported, laying out what they'd discovered.
Reeves nodded, adding the new information to their plan. We have the warrants, she informed them, holding up the official documents, and authorization for a covert operation, but there are conditions. Minimal force, no casualties if possible. What about Dr. Reed? Jack asked, unable to keep the anger from his voice. Especially Reed, Reeves replied firmly. We need him alive to testify. He's the key to bringing down the entire operation. Jack didn't like it, but he understood the strategy. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. For Emma, for the animals, and for all the other children who had been victimized. As darkness fell, they approached Site B again, this time with Reeves's full team. Stella and 3 of her puppies accompanied them, Oscar to find the way, Mercy to sense any human presence, and Shadow, the puppy with striped paws who could create small visual distortions to help them avoid detection. The maintenance tunnel was pitch black, forcing them to rely on night vision equipment and the dog's superior senses. They moved silently, communicating with hand signals as they penetrated deeper into the mountain. After what seemed like hours, they reached a metal door, clearly newer than the tunnel itself. According to their intelligence, this should lead to a service corridor within the facility. Now we find out if they've discovered this entrance, Reeves whispered, nodding to one of her tech specialists who began examining the door for alarms. Mercy suddenly stiffened, her small body alert. Jack placed a gentle hand on her back. "What is it, girl?" The puppy turned in a circle, then faced the door, her tail wagging slowly. Jack interpreted this as Mercy's signal that someone was approaching from the other side. Everyone tensed, weapons ready. The door handle turned slowly, and Jack held his breath as it swung open. To his shock, it wasn't a guard or scientist who stood in the doorway, but Diana, her face bruised, but her eyes burning with determination. "Jack?" she whispered in disbelief. "Diana," Jack breathed, relief washing over him. "How?" "No time," she cut him off urgently. "They're moving Emma and Nova tonight. Something about a final phase. We have to hurry." Has Diana really escaped? What is the final phase that Starlight is planning for Emma and Nova? Will Jack and the FBI team be able to rescue them in time? "Diana," Jack breathed, relief washing over him. "How?" "No time," she cut him off urgently. "They're moving Emma and Nova tonight. Something about a final phase. We have to hurry." Agent Reeves stepped forward, her weapon still at the ready. "Chief Mitchell, are you alone?" Diana's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the FBI agents. "Not completely. Marcus is creating a diversion in the East Wing. He hacked into their system to help me escape." She looked at Jack. "I came to find Emma, but they've moved her to a secure lab in the center of the facility." "And you're sure you weren't followed?" Reeves pressed, still cautious. Jack noticed Mercy watching Diana intently, her head tilted in that curious way. After a moment, the puppy approached Diana and gently licked her hand, the same trust signal she'd given Agent Reeves. "She's telling the truth," Jack confirmed. Mercy can sense deception. Diana's eyes widened as she noticed Stella and her puppies. "You found them. Thank God." She knelt to briefly stroke Stella's head before turning back to the group. "We need to move quickly. Reed has accelerated the program after what happened at the farm. He's planning to merge them somehow." "Merge who?" Jack asked, a chill running down his spine. "Emma and Nova," Diana's explained grimly. "He believes their connection is the key to weaponizing their abilities on a larger scale. He's developed some kind of neural interface." Jack's face paled. "It could kill them both." "Or worse," Diana added. "Emma might survive physically, but Reed doesn't care about preserving who she is, only what she can do." Reeves made a swift decision. "New plan. Mitchell, you guide us to this central lab. We'll extract the child and the puppy first, then secure the facility." Diana nodded. "Follow me, but be careful. They have security measures throughout the complex. Cameras, motion sensors, armed guards." "Let the puppies lead," Jack suggested. "They can sense the technology and the guards." With Oscar, Mercy, and Shadow taking point, they moved through the service corridor, Diana occasionally providing direction at junctions. The facility was a maze of sterile hallways and secured doors, but the puppies proved invaluable, alerting them to cameras and patrols before they could be detected. Twice they had to hide as guards passed, Shadow creating just enough visual distortion to conceal them in the shadows. Jack was amazed at how coordinated the puppies were, working together as if they'd been trained for years rather than days. "The main lab is through that security door," Diana whispered as they reached a sealed entrance with an electronic card reader. "But we need a key card with the highest clearance." One of Reeves's tech specialists moved forward. "I can bypass it, but it will take a few minutes." "We may not have minutes," Diana warned. "Reed is prepping for the procedure now." Jack looked down at the puppies, an idea forming. "Stella, come here," he said softly, kneeling beside the mother dog. "Can you find Luna? Can you find Emma?" Stella's ears perked up at the names. She sniffed the air, then approached the door, her nose working intently along the seam where it met the floor. "What's she doing?" Reeves asked. "Tracking," Jack explained. "German Shepherds are natural trackers, but Stella's abilities go beyond that. If Luna and Emma are behind that door..." As if confirming his theory, Stella backed up from the door and looked at Jack, her expression almost human in its urgency. "They're in there," Jack said with certainty, "and we need to get to them now." The tech specialist worked faster, his fingers flying over his equipment. Suddenly, an alarm began to sound in the distance. "That's Marcus's diversion," Diana explained, "but it won't keep them distracted for long." The security panel flashed green, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Stella immediately darted through, followed closely by her puppies. The humans rushed after them, weapons ready. The lab beyond was a large circular room filled with advanced medical equipment. In the center stood two specialized chairs with complicated headsets attached, surrounded by monitors and blinking machines. Emma sat in one chair, electrodes attached to her small head, her eyes closed, but her chest rising and falling steadily. Nova was in a clear containment unit beside her, similarly wired with tiny sensors on his head. And there was Dr. Reed, standing at a control panel, his back to them as he made final adjustments. "Federal agents," Reeves called out, her weapon raised. "Step away from the controls, hands where I can see them." Reed turned slowly, his expression shifting from shock to calculated calm as he took in the intruders. "Agent Reeves, I presume? I was warned you might be coming." His eyes narrowed as he spotted Jack. "Mr. Harper, how persistent you are." "Step away from my granddaughter," Jack demanded, his voice trembling with rage. Reed made no move to comply. "You have no idea what you're interrupting. This procedure represents the culmination of years of research, a breakthrough that will change national security forever." "By experimenting on a child?" Reeves countered. "By torturing animals? I have warrants for your arrest and for the shutdown of this facility. It's over, Reed." A cold smile spread across Reed's face. "Is it?" His hand moved slightly on the control panel. "One button, Agent Reeves. One button, and the procedure begins. Are you willing to risk what might happen if you try to stop me?" The standoff was tense, neither side willing to make a sudden move that might endanger Emma. Jack's eyes darted between Reed and his granddaughter, desperation mounting. Then he noticed something. Luna, emerging from beneath a nearby workstation, her eyes fixed on Reed with frightening intensity. The mother dog had been hidden in the lab all along, separated from her puppies but still present. As if sensing an opportunity, Stella gave a low bark. The puppies immediately spread out around the room's perimeter, each taking a position as if by prior arrangement. Reed glanced at the dogs nervously. "What are they doing? Keep them back!" Jack realized what was happening just as Shadow, the puppy with the striped paws, began to work its ability. The air around Reed seemed to shimmer slightly, and the doctor's eyes widened in confusion. "What?" Reed began, looking around frantically. "Where did you all go?" "He can't see us," Jack whispered to Reeves. "Shadow is blocking his perception." Taking advantage of Reed's disorientation, two agents moved swiftly to secure him, pulling his hands away from the control panel and forcing him to the ground. Reed struggled and shouted, but his threats fell on deaf ears as he was handcuffed. Jack rushed to Emma, carefully removing the electrodes from her head, while Reeves's medical specialist checked her vital signs. "She's been sedated," the specialist reported, "but her vitals are strong. She should recover fully." Relief washed over Jack as he gathered Emma into his arms, cradling her small body against his chest. "Thank God," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. Diana freed Nova from his containment unit, the golden-eyed puppy immediately waking and looking around frantically until he spotted Emma. With a soft whine, he wriggled from Diana's grasp and jumped onto Jack's lap, pressing his small body against Emma's side. "They found each other again," Diana said softly. "Nothing could keep them apart." With Reed secured and Emma and Nova safe, Reeves directed her team to sweep the rest of the facility. Marcus was located in the security center, where he had successfully hacked into the systems to aid their rescue. As they made their way back through the facility, now led by Reeves's agents, Jack carried Emma, while Luna stayed close to Nova. Mother and son reunited at last. Stella and her puppies formed a protective circle around them, their mission fulfilled. Outside, the night air was cool and clean, a sharp contrast to the sterile environment of Site B. Emergency vehicles waited, lights flashing in the darkness. Medical personnel rushed forward to take Emma to a waiting ambulance, Jack refusing to leave her side. "She'll be okay," the paramedic assured him after a thorough examination. "The sedative is already wearing off. She should wake up soon." Jack nodded gratefully, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. The dogs were being examined by veterinarians, receiving the proper care many of them had never known. Agent Reeves approached, her expression solemn but satisfied. "We've secured the facility and all personnel. The evidence is overwhelming, both from the flash drive and what we found inside. This operation is finished." "And Reed?" Jack asked. "In custody," Reeves confirmed, along with several other senior researchers. They're facing multiple federal charges, They won't see freedom for a very long time, if ever. Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you," he said simply, "for believing us, for helping us." Reeves nodded. "There will be questions, debriefings. The government will want to understand these abilities, the research." "They'll be left alone," Jack said firmly, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Emma, Luna, Nova, all of them. They deserve peace." To his surprise, Reeves smiled slightly. "I think that can be arranged. After what I've seen tonight, I believe some secrets are better left unexplored." She placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Get some rest. You've earned it." As dawn broke over the mountains, Emma finally stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Jack, who had been dozing in a chair beside her hospital bed, immediately woke. "Grandpa?" Emma whispered, her voice small but clear. "I'm here, sweet pea," Jack said, taking her hand. "You're safe now. We all are." Emma's eyes roamed the room, searching. "Nova?" In response, a small golden-eyed puppy poked his head up from the foot of the bed where he'd been curled up, watching over Emma as she slept. The hospital staff had tried to remove him, but his distressed whining and Emma's elevated heart rate whenever he was taken away had convinced them to make an exception to their no animals policy. Emma smiled weakly, extending her free hand to the puppy, who immediately moved up to nuzzle against her. "We did it, Grandpa," she said softly. "We stopped the bad people." "Yes, we did," Jack agreed, stroking her hair. "Thanks to you and Nova and all the brave dogs. You were so strong, Emma. So brave." A tear slipped down Emma's cheek. "Mom would be proud, wouldn't she?" Jack swallowed the lump in his throat. "She would be so proud, sweet pea. So very proud." In the days that followed, Emma's strength returned quickly, her resilience remarkable given all she had endured. The doctors found no lasting physical effects from the procedures Starlight had performed, though they recommended counseling to help her process the emotional trauma. The dogs thrived under proper care, their unusual abilities becoming less pronounced, but not disappearing entirely. Nova remained especially connected to Emma, the bond between them a source of comfort rather than a tool for exploitation. Diana and Marcus were cleared of any wrongdoing and hailed as heroes for their role in exposing Starlight's illegal activities. The evidence Jack had recovered implicated several high-ranking officials who had protected the facility, leading to resignations and further investigations. 1 month after the rescue, Jack stood on the porch of a new home, a small farm in a quiet valley, far from the site of their ordeal. The government, eager to avoid a public scandal, had provided generous compensation and new identities for those involved. Emma played in the yard with Nova and the other puppies, her laughter floating on the warm summer air. Luna and Stella watched from the shade of an old oak tree, their days of fear and pain now just a fading memory. Diana approached holding 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Jack. "Quite a view," she said, nodding toward the children and dogs. "The best," Jack agreed, taking a sip. "I never thought we'd have this again. Peace. Safety." "You made it happen," Diana reminded him. "Your courage, your determination. You never gave up on Emma." Jack shook his head. "We all did it. You, Marcus, Ben, Reeves, even the dogs. It took all of us." They stood in comfortable silence, watching as Emma taught Nova a new trick, the golden-eyed puppy sitting up on his hind legs and pretending to beg. The other puppies tried to copy him, resulting in a comical scene that had Emma giggling uncontrollably. "She's healing," Diana observed. "They both are." "Day by day," Jack agreed. "The nightmares are less frequent now. She's talking more, making friends with the neighbors' kids." "And the abilities? Have they changed?" Jack considered the question. "They're still there, but different, less like weapons and more like gifts. Emma says she can still hear the dogs, but it's more like understanding than actual words. And Nova still creates his illusions, but only when they're playing. It's become something joyful." Diana smiled. "As it should be." That evening, as Jack tucked Emma into bed, Nova already curled up on the pillow beside her, she looked up at him with serious eyes. "Grandpa, do you think there are other kids like me? Other special dogs?" Jack sat on the edge of the bed, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know, sweet pea. It's possible. But if there are, maybe someday we can help them too." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "I'd like that. Nobody should be scared like we were." "No, they shouldn't," Jack agreed, leaning down to kiss her forehead. But that's a worry for another day. Tonight, you sleep safe and sound. Love you, Grandpa, Emma murmured, her eyes already closing. Love you too, sweet pea, more than all the stars in the sky. Jack stood in the doorway a moment longer, watching his granddaughter sleep peacefully, Nova keeping vigilant guard beside her. The journey had been harrowing, the cost nearly unbearable, but they had emerged stronger, their bonds unbreakable. Outside, a full moon rose over the valley, its silver light bathing the farm in a gentle glow. In the barn, Luna and Stella settled their remaining puppies for the night, their extraordinary family safe at last. Jack took a deep breath of the clean night air, gratitude filling his heart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, but tonight, all was right with the world. His family, human and canine alike, was home. As Emma had said, they had stopped the bad people. They had saved each other, and in doing so, they had discovered the most powerful ability of all, love that transcended differences, love that healed wounds, love that conquered fear. It was this love that had truly worked the miracle, bringing a traumatized child back from silence and saving creatures who had known only cruelty. It was this love that would continue to guide them all in the days and years to come. And somewhere in the peaceful darkness, perhaps Emma's mother was watching over them, proud of the courage her daughter had shown, and the family that had fought so hard to protect her. The end of one chapter, the beginning of many more. What an incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to comment below and tell us which part moved you the most. Was it when Emma first spoke to save the stillborn puppy, when Jack faced Dr. Reed to recover the flash drive, or when the special puppies helped in the rescue? We'd love to hear from you.